She was a princess turned spy, a pacifist turned warrior. The Nazis hunted her as the most dangerous woman in France. Her name was Noor Inayat Khan, and her courage shook the Gestapo. Her story is one of contrasts. Born into peace, she chose war. Raised in the mysticism of Sufi philosophy, she embraced espionage and sabotage. Trained in music and poetry, she died whispering a single word that outlived her captors: liberté. Noor Inayat Khan was born in Moscow in 1914. Her father, Hazrat Inayat Khan, was an Indian Sufi mystic and musician who had traveled the world preaching harmony, tolerance, and non-violence. Her mother, Ora Ray Baker, was an American from New Mexico who had renounced her old life to marry a wandering philosopher. When Noor was just a baby, the family fled Russia during the First World War. They settled in France, where Noor grew up surrounded by music, spiritual teachings, and a devotion to kindness. From childhood, she seemed destined for gentleness, not violence. She played the harp and piano, wrote poetry, and dreamed of one day publishing stories for children. Her father's philosophy, peace above all else, was the air she breathed. As a young woman, Noor studied music at the Paris Conservatory and psychology at the Sorbonne. She was quiet, thoughtful, and sensitive, with large dark eyes that seemed to hold more sorrow than defiance. Friends described her as shy, almost fragile, but behind that softness was a steely resolve. She lived by ideals, not appearances. When her father died unexpectedly in 1927, Noor, only 13, took responsibility for helping her mother raise her younger siblings. She grew up fast. By the late 1930s, Noor had begun publishing short stories in French magazines. She dreamed of writing children's books filled with fables of kindness and courage. She was, by all appearances, destined to be a writer, not a warrior. But history has a way of rewriting destinies. In 1940, when Nazi troops marched into Paris, Noor's peaceful life was shattered. The family fled to Britain as refugees, carrying little more than their ideals and their will to survive. For many, exile meant despair. For Noor, it meant awakening. She could not look at the rising tide of fascism, the occupation of her beloved France, and do nothing. Though she had been raised a pacifist, she declared, "I wish to do something active for the war effort." It was a decision that shocked her family and friends. How could Noor, the quiet dreamer, the gentle musician, choose espionage and war? But Noor was not abandoning her values. She believed fighting tyranny was an act of service, a higher form of peace. In Britain, Noor first joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, training as a radio operator. Her fluency in French and her mastery of Morse code quickly drew the attention of the Special Operations Executive, SOE, Winston Churchill's secret army of spies. The SOE's mission was sabotage, to set Europe ablaze from within, using networks of resistance fighters, saboteurs, and radio operators who could coordinate attacks behind enemy lines. Noor fit their needs perfectly. She spoke flawless French, could blend in as a local, and had the skills to transmit messages to London from the heart of occupied Paris. But her pacifist background raised doubts. Was she tough enough for the brutal life of a spy? Could a woman raised on Sufi teachings survive interrogation if caught? Noor silenced those doubts with her resolve. She passed her training, learned to handle weapons, memorize codes, and parachute into enemy territory. Yet she remained true to herself. Her instructors noted she disliked violence, but her commitment was unshakable. By 1943, Noor was ready. She received her codename, Madeline. With a forged identity, a small suitcase radio, and nerves of steel, she was dropped into France. She knew the risks. The average life expectancy of an SOE wireless operator in France was just 6 weeks. Radios were bulky. Transmissions could be triangulated within minutes, and every knock on the door might be the Gestapo. But Noor went anyway. From the quiet dreamer raised on peace had emerged an unlikely warrior. She would step into Paris, a city crawling with Nazis, carrying not a rifle but a radio, a lifeline for the resistance, and a death warrant if discovered. In the summer of 1943, Noor parachuted into France under cover of darkness. She was armed with nothing more than a forged passport, a pistol she despised, and a wireless set packed in her suitcase. Paris was suffocating under Nazi occupation. Checkpoints on every corner, Gestapo agents in cafes, posters warning of executions for anyone caught aiding the resistance. For Noor, this was now home and battlefield. Her codename was Madeleine. Her mission, to act as the lifeline between London and the French resistance, transmitting coded messages that would guide supply drops, sabotage missions, and escape routes. The danger was almost unbearable. The Gestapo could triangulate radio signals within minutes. Operators had to set up in attics or basements, connect aerial wires, send their bursts of Morse, then vanish before the knock came at the door. Most wireless operators in France lasted only 6 weeks. Noor lasted nearly 4 months. At first, Noor was part of a small network of SOE agents, but within weeks, a wave of arrests devastated her circuit. Fellow agents were betrayed, rounded up, tortured. Radios were seized, safe houses burned. Noor was suddenly alone, the last radio operator in all of Paris. She carried her heavy transmitter across rooftops and alleys, from one hiding place to another, never staying in the same spot twice. At night, she would creep into strangers' apartments, stringing wires out windows, tapping out urgent coded bursts to London, supply requests, intelligence on troop movements, pleas for help. Every transmission could have been her last. London urged her to return, insisting it was too dangerous, but Noor refused. Without her, Paris would fall silent. The resistance would be cut off. She stayed. The Gestapo soon knew there was a woman sending signals, taunting them. They hunted her relentlessly. Patrols prowled rooftops, listening for aerial wires. Informants whispered about a mysterious young woman with dark hair and soft manners. But Noor was invisible. She dressed as a maid, a nurse, a student. Her gentle demeanor made her the perfect cover. To passers-by, she looked like anyone's daughter, never the Gestapo's most wanted operator. Every time she sent a message, she risked death, yet every time she survived. The Germans called her highly dangerous. London called her indispensable. To the resistance, she was a phantom who kept hope alive, but even the bravest spy can be undone by betrayal. In October 1943, a French double agent tipped off the Gestapo to her safe house. Noor was captured, dragged to Gestapo headquarters on Avenue Foch. She had no time to burn her codes, no chance to destroy her transmitter. The Gestapo believed the shy, soft-spoken woman would break quickly. They were wrong. Interrogated for hours, Noor refused to give a single name, a single code, a single secret. She lied, deflected, stalled. She had opportunities to save herself by cooperating, but she would not betray the resistance. Frustrated, the Gestapo declared her highly dangerous. She had not fired a shot, but she terrified them more than most soldiers. Even in prison, Noor refused to yield. Within weeks of her arrest, she attempted escape with 2 other women. They scaled a rooftop, darting across tiles under the moonlight. For a moment, freedom was within reach, but German guards caught them. Noor fought back, clawing and kicking. Her captors shackled her hands and feet, declaring her unfit for normal imprisonment. She was moved to Germany, where her ordeal would grow darker still. The Gestapo thought they had finally trapped the white mouse of Paris. But Noor's silence was more dangerous than her signals. She had carried France on her back for months, her Morse code keeping alive an entire city's resistance. And even in chains, she was unbroken, but the walls were closing in. Noor's fight was not over, but her time in Paris was. After her capture in Paris, Noor was transported to Germany. The Gestapo placed her in Pforzheim prison, where she spent nearly a year in solitary confinement. She was shackled hand and foot, allowed out only under guard, and subjected to repeated interrogations. The Gestapo called her highly dangerous, not because she carried weapons, but because of her silence. Despite torture, beatings, and constant threats, Noor never gave up a name, a code, or a contact. The entire Paris network she had run collapsed, but she carried its secrets to her grave. For the Germans, her refusal was infuriating. For the Allies, it was heroic. Other prisoners remembered her as quiet but unyielding. They saw her bruised and thin, but never broken. When guards demanded obedience, she met their cruelty with silence. When they tried to humiliate her, she carried herself with dignity. Even in chains, Noor radiated strength. She seemed to embody the spirit of her code name, Madeleine, a woman who endured suffering with grace, but whose resolve could not be erased. In September 1944, Noor and 3 other captured SOE women, Yolande Beekman, Madeleine Damerment, and Eliane Plumen, were taken from Pforzheim. Their destination was Dachau, one of the most infamous Nazi concentration camps. The women were dragged into the yard at dawn on September 13th. Beaten and abused, they faced their end with quiet courage. Witnesses later recalled that Noor's final word was whispered, fierce and clear: "Liberté," freedom. A gunshot ended her life. She was just 30 years old. After the war, Noor's bravery came to light through testimonies of survivors and declassified SOE reports. The woman the Nazis had tried to erase became a symbol of resistance. In Britain, she was posthumously awarded the George Cross, the nation's highest civilian decoration for gallantry. France honored her with the Croix de Guerre. In India, she became a symbol of sacrifice and the shared struggle for freedom. Yet for decades, her story was less known than those of male agents. She was remembered in whispers, in memoirs, in footnotes, until the world finally began to give her the recognition she deserved. In 2012, a statue of Noor Inayat Khan was unveiled in Gordon Square, London, the first memorial in Britain dedicated to an Asian woman. Her figure stands in bronze, gaze lifted, her presence eternal in the heart of the city she once served. To many, she represents not only the courage of the SOE, but the strength of women who defied expectations, blending gentleness with iron will. Noor's story is also a reminder that resistance comes in many forms, sometimes through weapons, sometimes through words, sometimes through silence. Her legacy lives in books, in classrooms, in films, and in the hearts of those who still whisper her last word, liberté. Picture her one last time, a young woman in Paris, her radio antenna stretched from an attic window, fingers flying across Morse keys while German boots echo in the street below. She knows each second might be her last, yet she transmits anyway. Noor Inayat Khan, the spy princess, carried no sword, fired no rifle, yet she fought with every ounce of her spirit. She gave her life, but never her secrets. The Gestapo believed they had silenced her. Instead, her defiance echoed across history. Her story is not one of tragedy, it is one of triumph. For Noor Inayat Khan did what she set out to do. She fought tyranny, she protected freedom, and she kept faith with her father's teachings of inner strength. In the end, she was no longer just Madeleine. She was something greater, a symbol of courage the Nazis could never kill.